Hello, welcome back to 3D Drawing for Model Railway. In the last lesson we finished off these two components underneath the main part of the underframe. I'm going to start looking now for some more details to add around the bottom. Now, one thing I've spotted that's going to be quite simple is these lights. So we're going to make a start on the lights. They seem to go all the way along, so we'll be adding those onto the chassis and just sort of working our way along, seeing if we can find more and more details that we can add in and around as we go. Okay, so jumping into Fusion, what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn off, I'm going to select the chassis because that's the part we're going to be working on, and then we'll be looking to add, let's say, these details in. Okay. So initially I'm going to turn off the bogey so that I can draw the first part in underneath it. So if we look at the position of the first light here, we can see it's sort of in line with where this little floodlight is that we've drawn on there. So we'll make sure we're working at the correct end. So you can see I've got the toolbox at this end. It's toolbox end, number one end. So just going to flip this on its side, and we're going to draw a sketch on the bottom surface. So you can see that's roughly where our flashlight is, or floodlight is, and the position is pretty much directly below it. So I'm going to draw a center point rectangle. I'm going to come across to the side here, and I'm going to go about that position there. Lengthwise, I'm going for, let's go for 2.5 millimeters, and I'm going to go for about, 1 millimeter wide, I think. I'm going to define the distance from the side as 0.6, just so that it's 0.6, just so that it's recessed in slightly. You can see it's ever so slightly inboard of it, so just, as I say, trying to copy that, not being right on the edge. Define the distance from the end. I'll go 10.8 just to make that nice and even. Okay, so if we look at the shape, apart from being rectangular at the bottom, it sort of chamfers upwards as well. It's not particularly thick, it's probably 3 or 4 inches, so we don't need to draw this as a massive extrusion. So we're just going to extrude it downwards, maybe, well, 0.5 is going to be 3 inches, so I'm going to go for maybe 0.7. And then we're going to use the chamfer tool on the top edge. So tangent chain will make sure it selects all the top edge, hopefully, which it won't. So we're just going to go round like that. And I'm going to chamfer in, not equal distance, I'm going to do two-sided. Upwards I'm going to come 0.5. Don't want 0.5 inwards, that's just way too big. I'll go maybe 0.2, see what that looks like. So I might come a little bit less. I know it's not much, but 0.15, just to get them a little bit straighter coming down. But yeah, happy with that, I think. Let's just check to make sure that's the same body. Yep, good. So now what we've got to do is try and find out where they all are coming all the way down the chassis here. So in this photo, it's good that we can see all the way down. We've got one just here, one here, 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 and then on the end here. So we're just going to use the pattern tool to put these across, which will make it life easy. So the easiest one to start with really is the end one. We can see that it's again pretty much directly below that floodlight there. So we can just zoom out and we can do rectangular pattern, features, and then we can select the extrusion and the fillet that we've just done. The direction, we're going to go horizontal. We're going to need 2 of them, and we're going to bring this across. We want it just to be below where that floodlight is there. So again, looks okay there. Okay, so let's look at the next one. So if we now work across from this side, you can see how this position here is directly pretty much above where these rams come down on the bit we were drawing in the last lesson. Again, rectangular feature, select the 2 features, direction horizontal. We need 2 of them. And as I said, we want it to be pretty much where those rams are. Okay, next one along. is above, just slightly above where the last of the wheels on those rams that we drew last lesson was. So again, rectangular feature, direction, two of them, and as I say, it's slightly above them, but offset to the left of them slightly. So see how that's the position there. I'm pretty happy with that. Okay, and then the last one. It's going to be difficult. This sort of in line with where the middle of the engine compartment is. Let's see if we can find a different bit. Yeah, so yeah, the end of it is sort of in line with that middle part of the engine compartment is. So again, selecting those two features, direction. Just want two of them. So yeah, 76.5. So I'm going sort of roughly in that area. Okay, so that's all our floodlights down, or underfloor lighting down this side. Next we're going to look at is I'm going to find pictures to the other side, see if we can just mirror or whether we've got to do them completely separately. Okay, so within all the photos I haven't got a one that's full on for the other side of the unit, so we can just sort of work our way along and sort of see whether they're going to be of any use to us. So we can see initially this is the number one end again, so we've got one again under the headlight, so that's this one here. The next one coming along is, again, this is looking sort of in line with where the point, this point here that we drew on the last lesson is. So again, we've got it there, that's fine. Which is that one there, not going the wrong way. The next one we've got is in line with the wheel again, so that's this one here. And then again, in line with the door panel of the engine, and then underneath the lights. So we know we can mirror all these across quite simply using the mirror plane in the middle here, which is plane number one. So I'm just going to turn that on to highlight it. Then I'm going to use the mirror function, and I'm going to select all of the features, so the features for the original one, and then all of the mirrors, so all of the patterns that we did for the next 5. I've selected faces there rather than bodies. Just selecting them again. Mirror plane, selecting that midpoint, and then tell it to mirror. Still only got one body, good. So we've got lights on both sides of the unit now. We can turn that construction plane off. Okay, so just a nice little detail add there, nice and simple there. So looking at this picture here, the next thing that really stands out to me is this air tank on the side here next to the light. So that should be quite an easy little draw here. Again, when we do it, we want the top edge to be touching the frame here, so it's supported. And you can see we've got two small rectangular sections that are going to be supports either side of it. So I'm going to jump into Fusion. Looking at that picture, we're talking about this side of the unit. So you see the toolbox and the fuel tank there. So we're looking underneath in this area here. So as we said, it's sort of roughly in line with the light. So I'm going to do an offset plane from the end of the light, which you can see that the chamfers have gone a bit weird on those because of the way that they've mirrored. Actually, we're going to fix that first. So what's going to be the best way to do this? Edit. It appears that chamfers and mirrors don't seem to work particularly well. So let's edit that feature. And then we're going to remove the chamfer off of it. Mirror those across, and then we can add them in. Weird how it's done them on those as well. Nightmare. What can we do to fix this? Okay, so I don't think there's going to be a quick and easy fix on this. So I'm just going to edit this. I'm going to have to do it probably the long way around. I'm going to delete the objects and just mirror across the initial block at the top here. Then we're going to have to add in the chamfer again on that one. Two distances. Can't remember what we did now. I think it was 0.5 and that way so we can do it properly. This one we did 0.15, I think. Okay, and then I think the only way to do it really is going to then be pattern these down using that mirror. Okay, so let's just check this distance here. So this one was 96 millimeters. So if we pattern the mirror and the chamfer direction, change it to 96 millimeters and just do 2 of them, that should put them in line. So the next one we did 31 millimeters. Same again, select the mirror and the chamfer direction, sideways, 2 of them, 31 millimeters. Next one was 57 millimeters. And the last was 76.5. Okay, so back to where we should be. The lights are on. Obviously, the chamfer tool doesn't work particularly well when we mirror because, as you can see, it flips that two-sided difference the wrong way around for some reason. So, a bit of a pain. So, never mind. So, we're going back to doing this fuel tank, air tank on the side. I'm going to do an offset plane from the face of the light there. Make sure you get the vertical one, not the chamfered one. And I'm just going to bring that to the side slightly from it. Why have I got 2 lines out? I think it's weird. Seems to have drawn 2 of them for some reason. But I'm going to come in across anyhow by about 0.5 millimeters, just so we've got some separation between them. Okay, you're going to draw on that surface now. Again, we're still working on the chassis. And let's turn off. Do we need to get rid of the buffers because they're in the way? That light's come across too far. What's that about? I'll come back and fix that light in a minute. I'm not sure why that's mirrored across so far when the mid-plane is the mirror that we used. I don't understand why that's not gone exactly in the same place, because that midpoint, that's a mid-plane. Let's just have a quick look. Let's do a mid-plane again. The 2 sides and see whether that lines up the same. Why has it gone like that? That side, that side. So, okay, Okay, so something's moved around our midplane. The chassis has, because you can see the body's now offset. At some point the chassis moved slightly. So we need to shift this across by however much this is sticking out by. So we've got to fix this. Can't continue to work with that not being in the right place. Let's shifty this across a little bit. I'm just going to go back through the history to see if this moves while I go back through the history of it. There, something changed at that point. So if I come up to the top here, scroll through the history, something here has changed. I'm looking for anything that could be a move here. Okay, so something around that point. Let's suppress that because that's what's caused the issue. That move there. It may or may not be on yours, but it's definitely happened on mine. So I'm just going to jump back to the end to see if that makes any effect. Okay, so I'm going to have to come back and fix this, whatever this is. So it's something to do with the wheeled underframe detail, so let's have a look in there. So let's have a look at fixing this. Point 1, so that point is lost. And click on relink that point, click on OK. Just see if I fixed it. No. Select that relink to that point. Click on OK, that's fixed it. Finish the sketch. Jump to the end. So hopefully that's fixed all of those. Go back to the top level, jump to the end on that. Scroll back through. Nothing else looks broken. I'll check this mirror now. Edit feature. That's still step there for some reason. Okay, I'm going to try and find a fix for this and then I'll come back to you. Okay, so I found that there was just another one of those move features that for some reason it jumped across. So yeah, I've completely removed that. I'm just going to delete this move that we did at the end here. So that's not stepping across. You can see how everything's now sitting where it should do. And it's symmetrical, no issues at the bottom. I'm not sure quite why it's happened or how it happened, but it was probably, if you remember, we had a couple of times back in the past where I had that capture position that came up. And I wonder if that's potentially what caused the problem there. But anyhow, as I say, it's back to how it was, back to fixed. So we go back to this chassis. We were drawing the fuel tank on here, so let's, not fuel, air tank, sorry. Let's edit that. Make sure we're at the right end, so we're looking, cancel there. I believe we're looking at this end underneath the fuel tank. So I'm going to draw underneath here a circle. If we look at the air tank, you can see it's all inboard. There's not sitting proud of the lights or anything. So we need to make sure that we are inboard of that. Okay, I'm going to go for maybe 2.5mm tank. I'll have a look at that and maybe change it in a minute, depending on how it looks once I've extruded it. Distance there, I'm going to go for 1mm, so there's only 0.25 that's sitting into the bodywork there. Distance from the side of the unit, I'm going to go for 1.8mm. Okay, we can extrude this, and we've got to be careful that we don't get too close to the bogey as well. That's one thing we've got to consider. If we just turn that on, yeah, we've got plenty of room there. So the extrusion distance, you can see it sort of goes roughly to the end of where the fuel tank is. So if we just extrude this sort of roughly to the end, so about 6mm I'm going for. I'm going to tell it to join, click on OK. So looking at the shape of the fuel tank, you see you've got your rounded ends on there. You don't want to have solid ends on the side. So we're going to use our fillet tool and select two ends like that. It's not clashing in there, is it? Oh, it might be a little bit. We might have to move the plane up a bit to make sure we don't clash with that. So fillet the two ends. I'm going to do a, let's try 0.3. Yeah, 0.3 looks quite nice there. So let's just curve the end off there. Okay. So as I say, I don't want this clashing here because it doesn't look like it is on there. No, it's definitely not. It's much more over. Maybe that light needs to come over a little bit. Okay, so we're just going to offset that a bit more. Yeah, come up to 1mm. Then we know we're not going to be touching this part here. Okay, so now I'm going to work on these supporting brackets, and I'm not going to do anything fancy there. I'm just going to do a couple of rectangles upwards off of it. So I'm going to just rotate this around. I'm going to turn the bogey off so it's not in the way. I'm going to create an offset plane from the end surface, and I'm just going to bring that in 1 millimeter is probably too far. I'm going to go for maybe 0.8. No, 0.7. Okay, going to go for 0.7 there. Click on OK. Okay, and I'm going to create a sketch on that surface. So I'm going to use a center point rectangle. And find the midpoint of the circle there. I'm going to bring it up sort of towards where the chassis is. And I'm just going to drag it out. I want the same width as the tank, so we know the tank's 2.5 wide. And the height, I'm going for 2 millimeters. And then I'm going to constrain the point there to that line. Okay, we've also got horizontal vertical constraint to the midpoint there, and we know that it's locked into position there. Okay, now if we select the bottom half of the feature there, extrude, rotate it around so we can see what we're looking at, and I'm going to extrude it 0.4 millimeters, tell it to join, click on OK, and then I'm going to pattern that feature across the air tank, just the two of them. I'm looking to have it roughly in the same position. You see 4.2 millimeters is going to give us about the same each side. Okay, and that's just given those support brackets shape there. Interestingly, we've also got the same air tank on the other side of the unit. So again, we can just use our mirror tool using that mid-plane, turn that mid-plane on, and then we can mirror. We select all the features for the initial air tank that we've drawn, so the extrusion, the fillet off the end, and then the next extrusion for the supports and the pattern for the supports. It's already selected the mirror plane, click on OK. We put it both sides now. So again, you can see we're just adding more and more detail, and it's hiding up that expanse that we had underneath before we had, well, just had the bogies here. So again, nice easy little thing there. Here's another really interesting, great photo here. We can see that with the air tanks that we've just drawn, there's another two that go transverse across the body here. And they look like they're pretty much all the same design, so all four of them are probably the same. So I'm just wondering if we can copy this, rotate it, and put them side by side here. If we look underneath, probably going to have to turn these into a separate body to be able to do that. Let's just go about doing that. So if we change this, edit that feature, tell that to be new body, then we'll have to make sure we check all of these. That's still new body there. That one there will need to be changed, I think. Turn, I need to do that. Okay. I had a feeling that might do that. So let's just see what we've got. Body one there. If I just jump before that mirror and then do combine body 5, 6 and 7. Click on OK. So we've now got that separate body. Jump back forwards, that's mirrored that across. Edit that feature. Change that to just body 5. Play funny. Okay, so we'll leave it as it is and then we combine it afterwards. So do body 8, 9, 10. Combine that. So body 5 and 8 of those air tanks. If we just copy either one of them and then paste, So let's rotate it 90 degrees, move it up to the middle, and then across, because they're both inside. Click on OK. So we've got another body there, and then if we just do rectangular pattern, bodies, select that body, select the direction to come across, only 2 of them, not 3, put them side by side, it needs to be a little bit more than that, 2 maybe, 3.3. So now we've got 4 tanks there. We need to be careful of this tank and the end of the drive shaft coming out there. They might be intersecting. If they are, we might have to just file a bit off of that. Okay, so now we're going to combine these bodies here. So body 1 will keep as a target body, and the tool bodies being all of those air tanks. Okay, we know that we've still got that as a separate piece, so it's not touching because it's in a separate component. Okay, again, it's just more detail underneath there. You're probably not even going to see those inside tanks, but we know they're there, and it might just help to hide some more details up there. So I'm going to finish this episode at this point here. It's taken a little bit longer than I thought, but you can see some of the issues you have with CAD, and it's been good to be able to show you that when things go wrong, how to fix them. It just seems that a couple of things on this episode have gone wrong with the issue we had with the mirroring and the chamfer, and then the body moving for some reason. I'm not sure why it's done that. I've just, as you saw, I went back in the feature and I suppressed in the history the features that were the moves, and then we've added in these. I've showed you how we initially drew them, then we've gone back and changed them into separate bodies so that we can then copy to create these two, and then moved it back forwards and combined it all together to create the one body again. So we've got those, as I say, those 4 fuel tanks and the lights are the main things we managed to get done today. So I hope you've enjoyed watching today's lesson, and we're going to continue on the next lesson, moving on with more of the underframe detail.